Now in this first class of AZON Masterclass 2, I'm not really going to be diving into hands-on training quite yet. I need to talk to you guys about what this entire strategy is about, and we're going to be doing a decent amount of work on niche selection for this strategy today, because this is one of the most important things concerning this particular strategy. You have to be very particular about exactly what niche you're going after to ensure that you're going to get the best results off of this strategy. So to start with, what we're going to be doing is blogging in this strategy, but this isn't going to be what you might traditionally think of as a blog, so don't let this immediately scare you off here. What we're going to be doing is blogging as either a fan or an industry expert. So we can either be somebody that simply loves a particular type of product or a hobby that's associated with a particular kind of product, or we could be more of the expert of that hobby or industry. And we can blog from different points of view using those two different positions. And what we're also going to be doing is making daily posts, preferably. The more posts you can make, the better off you're going to be. If possible, make more than one post a day. You could do 2, 3, 4, even 5 posts a day if you want to. These aren't going to be long, drawn-out, in-depth posts. They're not going to require hundreds of words of unique content. I have a strategy that I'll be teaching you guys in this series where we're actually going to get the base content for all of these posts from sources already out there on the internet. And then we're simply going to add in a couple of sentences or so worth of our own unique content, opinions, or whatever the case may be. And these posts, the content that we're going to get from these other websites, they're typically going to be some type of media, like pictures or videos. So, for example, if we were creating a fan site blog, we could find pictures that are already out there from people that use the product. Maybe they use a particular product to create something, and then they've taken a picture of it. Well, we can take that picture and put it on our site and just add in our opinions about it and create a site that people actually want to follow along with, people that are heavily interested in whatever niche or product we might be going after. Now, the real question is, why would you want to actually do this? Why would you want to blog? First of all, the frequent posting, it builds better Google rankings. The more often you post, Google will take notice of that. They love sites that have fresh new content, especially if that content is coming in on a daily basis. Even if they're shorter posts, they don't have to be 500 to 1,000 word long, in-depth blog posts. They can just be short little blippets here and there. Now, these posts are going to build reader loyalty for us, repeat traffic, and also repeat sales as a result. People will follow along with these blog posts, and these posts are not going to be selling something necessarily all the time. So when we actually make a post on one of these sites and we're promoting a product, we're not only going to get people that will actually pay attention to it, but they will welcome the advertisements. And instead of just getting trickles of sales here and there, we'll actually be able to push a larger volume of sales in a short period of time. So just imagine creating a blog post maybe once a week or so where you're promoting a particular product, or maybe where you've just given a list of some of the best sellers in a relating category of whatever niche you're going after. And as soon as you post this advertisement on your site, you can immediately have people going to it and checking it out, going on to Amazon, and you can actually have piles of sales come in the very first day. In a lot of ways, this is really kind of merging Amazon affiliate tactics with more traditional tactics that information product developers have been using for a long time, where they're going to build a email newsletter list, and they'll have that constant contact with the people that are interested in what they're doing. And then they can actually send out an email that advertises something and immediately get a pile of sales in a short period of time, instead of just waiting on random people to come through on a search engine and hope they end up completing a sale. You have a very limited amount of time there to kind of make a good impression. So we're doing the opposite here, and we're getting people really comfortable with what we're doing. We're trying to get them involved with us on a daily basis, following what we're doing. So this is really, really good to use with social media, and more so when you're targeting a passionate niche. I'll be talking about passionate niches here in just a couple of minutes. Now, as I mentioned before, this constant contact with a loyal readership base that you've built up means that they're going to take notice of your advertisements. Now, this graph that I have right here, this is not my graph. This comes from the University of Dartmouth. This is talking about Fortune 500 corporations that are essentially using this same type of strategy here with their own business and their own brands to build that customer loyalty. Back in 2007, only 16% of these Fortune 500 corporations were using this strategy. And now, just 6 years later, just this past year in 2013, 34% of these corporations are now using these public-facing blogs. That's more than double in just 6 years, and now more than a third of all of these Fortune 500 corporations are using this strategy. And there's really one simple reason why they do this. It simply works. They have that constant contact with their customers. They get them involved in their everyday lives and kind of get that personal level of contact, that personal relationship with them. And so when it comes time to purchase something, people are much more likely to consider these loyal brands or loyal websites that they're following, and they would rather purchase through these people instead. Now, one of the most important things about this entire strategy, as I had mentioned very early on, is the niche selection. You need to choose a niche that people are passionate about. This is, again, one of the most important things that you need to pay attention to here. The niche preferably should have products that people are going to buy over and over again. I'm talking about the same person here. So once you get that constant contact with that person, you have a pretty good chance of not only selling something to them one time, but selling something to them over and over again over the course of weeks or months or even years. Now, just like any of my other strategies, you want to get as specific as possible with whatever kind of niche you're trying to target. Don't just go after some kind of general category. You need to choose a sub-niche. You need to choose something that people are actually going to have a direct interest in. That way, you're not posting about all of these other different topics, and they're only limited to a very minor selection of those topics because that's all they're really interested in. What you would really prefer to have is a site where most people that would be following that site would basically be interested in everything that you're going to be posting. And really the only way to achieve that is to narrow your niche selection down. It'll not only help you when it comes to planning out the site and building your website content, but it'll also help a lot in terms of attracting those targeted visitors that you really want, the people that you want to be following along with what you're doing. Now, when I'm going through a niche, once I have identified what I believe to be a passionate niche, there are a couple of things that I want to ask myself just to make sure that this particular niche is a good possibility, at least, that I can proceed with and start trying to actually figure out what I'm going to be targeting here. Let's see, Terry is asking a question. Do I use subdomains to accomplish this if the niche is too broad? No, not with this strategy, at least, Terry. What I'm really looking to do here is just pick out one niche, since this is going to be something where we're going to be making daily posts to this site. And so obviously we're going to be working on this site continually. I wouldn't really recommend going after a whole bunch of different niches. I would try to pick at least just one to start with and see how it works for you, see how you manage to keep up with the workload. And, you know, if you decide at a later point in time that you wanted to expand into a second niche, that would be completely fine to do. But I really wouldn't start from the get-go thinking that you'll run multiple types of these sites, because they will be a lot different from my original strategy where you just build a site full of static pages, and once you're finished with the site, you essentially move on to the next one. These sites will be more of a site that can definitely earn a lot more for you compared with the other type of site, but in the same manner it will take more of your ongoing time as well. So you're probably not going to be creating a whole bunch of these different types of sites. So I would stick with just a primary domain name to use for this strategy, a .com preferably if you can get it. And you don't even have to use a exact match domain here. I'll actually be talking about domains before the end of the night. I really go for more of a branded domain strategy here. You're quite welcome, Terry. So I have these 3 questions up here. These are the questions that I will ask myself and go and research if I need to try to identify whether the passionate niche that I have picked out is actually a good choice that I should proceed with. To start with, the first one here, is there any kind of Amazon bestsellers list for this particular niche. I want something, not one of the general categories on Amazon, like electronics, for example. But when you go into the bestseller list for a big category like that, you can always drill down into more subcategories. Whenever possible, I would like to be able to find a bestseller list that is closely relational to whatever niche it is that I'm trying to target here. This way, I would not only have access to the bestseller list, but it would also give me the other lists that Amazon has, top-rated, new arrivals, the wish list, and so on. These particular lists can be helpful for us when we're doing this more blog style type of website, because we won't have to go out there and continuously research products. One possible way of promoting products on these sites is simply to make a new post once a week, once a month, whatever the case may be, whatever fits best for your niche, and simply promote the Amazon bestsellers. That way you don't have any research to go along with picking out those products. And as long as the list is similar to the niche that you're going after, then this should be an easy way to refer sales, because these should be the popular products that most of the people in your niche would be looking to buy. So having this list available for you can cut down on your potential workload here. And this is really kind of the whole idea of this strategy. I don't want to be sitting around every day writing out blog posts for hours. I'm going to really be teaching you guys how you can create a new blog post in 10 minutes, maybe even less, once you get a little more familiar with this strategy. And that way you can actually sit down 1 or 2 days a week if you want, just for a couple of hours, and do an entire week's worth of work for this site. And I'll be teaching you guys as this series progresses how to get everything scheduled so you don't actually have to be sitting there every moment posting, you know, these different blog posts throughout the day. Now next up, I ask myself, are there products in this niche that people are going to buy over and over again? Because this is really, really important. It's not enough to be targeting a passionate niche. I need to make sure that having this constant contact with these consumers is actually going to be worthwhile. Because if you're in some kind of niche where they're only going to buy a product every couple of years or something like that, there's not really a lot of point in having this constant contact with them. There needs to be something that their interest or hobby is essentially dependent upon for them to be able to do it. And that way they would have to continue buying these products as long as they stay interested in the niche. And as long as you're going after a passionate niche, then that really shouldn't be an issue. A lot of these people will simply continue on in these hobbies for years and years and years, really. Yes, I'll be going over actually in a little more detail here in just a little while some examples of both niches, and then I also have a more detailed worksheet that I will actually be working through with you guys, Kate. And that will be before too much longer. Next up, are there a variety of ways that you could talk about the hobby that uses these products? this is what I was referring to in terms of we're going to find base content for the blog post that we're creating. We're going to go out there and find people's discussions or pictures that people are posting or videos that people are posting and use this as the base content for our site and essentially give our opinions and comments on whatever it is that we're posting. So that ties in to this particular point here. You essentially want to go out and find if there are indeed these resources out there available for you. See if you can find fan pictures for whatever niche it is that you're targeting. Because as long as you can find those fan pictures, it's essentially an unlimited source of content, different ways that you could talk about these different niches here. Now, to talk about passionate niches in a little bit more detail for you here, it isn't enough for people to actually like a product to qualify it as a passionate niche. You want people that essentially wake up and start thinking about whatever their hobby is or whatever their love in life is, and they think about it all day long, whether they're at work, they come home and they want to research information about it, they spend all their free time actually doing it. So this is what I would define as a passionate niche, something that people are really, really serious about. And a good comparison that I like to use is bedding sheets or any kind of bedding product. And honestly, there's a whole slew of other products that would fit into this same type of category. But you don't have people that wake up in the morning and are passionate about their bed sheets. You don't have people that, you know, think about them all day long and research information about them all the time and are constantly buying new ones. You know, you might have random people here and there that are really, really attached to a particular type of product, but in general, you know, that type of thing doesn't apply to most of the different products that are really out there on the marketplace. So you want people that really, really love whatever it is that they're doing. And I'll be talking about a number of examples of these here in just a little while. Now, you not only want people that love whatever it is that you're doing, but if at all possible, this isn't an absolute requirement, by the way, but if at all possible, if you have people that equally hate the same niche or the same hobby, then that can actually be an ideal situation for this particular strategy, because these two different sides will essentially battle each other. And when you have your niche and your website connected up with social media, for example, then you give them a place that they can actually do this. And people will join in to your group or your fan page or whatever the case may be, just so they can chime in on these heated discussions. They'll start reading it, and they'll get a little wrapped up in it, and they'll just have this insane desire to want to say something in response to somebody. And so they'll often join up with your group, and you can actually attract a ton of new people this way. And oddly enough, even the people that hate something, they're not going to kill what it is that you're doing, because you're going to have the people that love what you're doing defending that. And in fact, there may even be some products that you could potentially sell to people that hate your niche as well. Now, I have a couple of really good examples of this, again, that I will be getting to in just a few here. But I don't want to try to get too far ahead of myself with those explanations. Now, to continue on about passionate niches a little bit more, they're not like a normal niche. As a marketer, there are particular things about passionate niches that make them more valuable to us than a normal niche. First of all, we have the people that seek out and follow the sites and the information in these passionate niches. This is what results in that constant contact, the loyal readers that actually follow what we do. Next up, we have people that eagerly buy products in these niches, and they typically do so through some type of trusted source. It could either be a store, it could be a particular brand, manufacturer, it could also be something like what we're trying to set up, more of a blogger or some type of social media group where they spend a lot of time and they engage in these conversations and they follow what you talk about. People will build up a trust in you and actually be more than willing to purchase their products through your advertisements. In fact, they might even go out of their way to do it just so you earn the commission off of it. And next up, people engage in conversation about these particular niches. And this is especially the case on social networks because you're giving them that avenue where they can actually talk about it. And so without really meeting these different aspects, I wouldn't consider it to be a passionate niche. I wouldn't really consider it to mesh well with this particular strategy. But it doesn't mean that you have to toss it out. You can still use my old strategy to build the static websites. It's just important to kind of distinguish which one might be better. Now, before I proceed, just to ensure that you guys are following along here okay and understanding what I am trying to teach you so far, because this basic strategy information is really one of the most important parts here, and so I need to make sure that this is something that you're grasping. So I have a pop quiz for you. If you don't mind, just punch in an answer, A, B, C. A later question even has a D option as well. And I'll give you guys just maybe 30 seconds or so to punch in an answer to this, and then we will be proceeding. I actually just realized that this repeat class, I do not have the polls set up, so just type in your response into the chat box. I'll make sure the actual polls that pop up on your screen show up in the additional repeat classes of this series. Alright, I think I've got replies from at least most of you. Looks like we've got C's across the board, and that is the correct answer. The most important part of this strategy is choosing a passionate niche. Without this, everything else kind of becomes pointless and overkill in a lot of ways. Now, next up, this is why I didn't want to discuss any specific examples of niches, because some of my examples that I really like to use would actually kind of spoil this question. For those of you that were in the first running of this class, I spoiled this question in that particular class, so I tried my best not to do so this time around. So number 2, which niche seems like the most passionate niche out of the 3 choices, at least, that I have provided here? All right, looks like pretty much everybody has answered B, hunting. I would consider this to be the correct answer. I say most passionate niche here. From these different possibilities that I had up here, a lot of people will sometimes think televisions to be a passionate niche. And in some ways, and from a certain point of view, this could be true. People are pretty passionate about their televisions, oftentimes. But in terms of picking out a niche that people are not only going to be passionate about, but a niche where I would have some kind of opportunity to repeatedly sell something to them over the course of time, instead of just a random TV purchase every couple of years, perhaps. But then not only that, I really ask myself whether people would engage in conversation about televisions. Now, the TVs themselves, probably not, or very brief, limited types of discussions. But then you might have people, where I guess this would kind of stray into a gray territory here, would be TV shows and movies and things of that nature. You could definitely have a blog centered around a particular TV show, for example, where every week when the TV show came on, then you made a new post about that show. And the people that followed you would very likely be very passionate about your niche. And so in that respect, you could consider TV to be a passionate niche. But then I also ask myself, even in that best situation, what could I really sell them over and over again? You know, the TV itself, the big dollar product here, is not really going to be a viable option for that. I could promote DVDs of TV shows, but if my site was about a specific TV show, then my best sales would only be on DVDs of that show. And again, that would only be something that came around maybe once a year at the best. And even in the beginning, I wouldn't have anything that I could promote because there wouldn't be any DVDs for that show. So considering all this, you know, TVs could potentially be a passionate niche, but I definitely would consider hunting to be the most passionate, simply because of the wide variety of products out there, the fact that people would engage in discussion about it, and the people that are interested in hunting often live for it. They can't wait till they're off work for the weekend and they just want to go disappear into the woods. And there's all kinds of different accessories and products and stuff that revolve around this particular niche, that there would be continual things that you could promote to these people. Now, my last question here. This particular question is not necessarily limited to just one answer. You can choose one answer if you think that is the correct answer, or you can select multiple answers. So how can you easily come up with daily unique content for post on a passionate niche blog? Okay, now I may not have directly talked about every single one of these possibilities here, but I would actually consider all four of them to be potentially the correct answer. Now, A, for example, find pictures online from niche fans, post them to your site, and briefly discuss them in your own words. This was definitely one of the main things that I had mentioned and could potentially be your primary source of your daily unique content for these blogs. However, any of these other possibilities here, these are all still viable options that you can explore. Whatever works best for your niche or simply for you. You're welcome to pick one or mix and match all of these, really. B, tell stories about experiences of niche fans. You could go out to forums, for example, where people are engaging in discussions, and you could find some kind of story that somebody posted about their experience or something they were working on, whatever the case may be, and you don't want to copy any kind of text and bring it over to your website, but you can still essentially put things into your own words and just type out like a brief rehash of what the story was about and put your own comments to go along with it. You can also find videos that are out there. These could either be related to your niche, so they could be more from like industry expert points of view, where you would have perhaps product reviews or tutorials or something of that nature. Or you could also have simply fan videos where, let's say, somebody purchased a product and they wanted to show what their results were with it, or maybe they used it to create something and they wanted to kind of show how they did that. you could take these videos and embed them on your site off of YouTube. Just try to make sure if you're going the video route that you don't get videos that have blatant advertisements for other companies or websites in them, because you obviously don't want to end up losing your potential buyers to these other websites. But there are a lot of videos still out there that aren't necessarily marked with anything in the video themselves. And then the final option here, you can discuss industry news or provide brief tutorials yourself. These tutorials wouldn't even have to be video tutorials. You could simply just walk people through a couple of steps of whatever it is that you're trying to teach them, and just simply list them out in text, short, sweet, and to the point. Industry news, you could find things that are going on in your niche. This wouldn't really apply to every niche that's out there, but if you had some kind of niche that was pretty active in terms of ongoing development and new things that were happening all the time, that would make a good situation where you could possibly target that industry news to try to bring in people and keep them interested in what you're talking about. Now, I want to discuss some niches with you guys here. I have shared 2 pages worth of my personal niche recommendations recently through a bonus training webinar that I offered. So these lists initially may be familiar to you if you were a part of that bonus webinar. However, you may notice that I have actually made some additions here. I've actually put in some of, even more so, my personal favorite niches, things that I kind of wanted to keep special for you guys, and also niches that I feel like would be a really, really good fit for this particular strategy. I made sure that I added some of those in there as well for you. So I'm going to walk you through some of these to discuss them with you in a little more detail here, so you can actually get a good understanding of what a good possible niche would be to target. And in fact, something here may be appealing to you. You may have some knowledge on one of these possible niches already. And if that's the case, you could easily save yourself a lot of work, since you already know things about it, by not having to do a bunch of research. So to start out with here, automobile customization products. This particular niche I really, really like. I've had a lot of first-hand experience with it, even though I'm not a car guy whatsoever. I can't even change my own oil. I'm completely helpless when it comes to anything car-related. And I couldn't tell you the first thing about really much of anything under the hood. I could probably point out where the oil goes, but that might be about it. However, it doesn't mean that I can't do anything with this niche. I wanted to at least mention that because, you don't have to know everything about these niches to succeed in them. You don't have to be the industry expert, especially using this blogging strategy. You can just be a fan, so you don't have to know everything. You can just post from the perspective of basically, hey, this is cool, check it out. Well, one of my favorite sub-niches within this automobile customization niche, I want to discuss with you in a little more detail. And this is also to point out that you shouldn't necessarily choose something that you see on this page here and make that your final niche selection. You're really looking for more of a sub-niche of one of these here, or one of the other ones that I may discuss. And again, these aren't your only possibilities, but these are a lot of great possibilities that you can use for brainstorming to get you started with. So within this automobile customization niche, one of my favorite types of products is something called carbon fiber vinyl. Carbon fiber vinyl is actually the niche that I'm going to be targeting in the website that I'm going to build throughout this training series. So you guys are going to actually get to see how I would approach this and how it all ends up working out for me in the end as well. Now, I'm not blindly entering this carbon fiber vinyl niche. I've actually sold this product before online using e-commerce on my own website and also through eBay and on Amazon as well. But it was actually wholesale, where we'd order a whole bunch of rolls of this stuff. I wasn't doing this by myself. And we would cut this stuff up into smaller sheets because we'd be buying 500,000 square foot rolls, and most people only needed but a small percentage of that. So we'd cut them up into smaller sheets and resell them online. And I can tell you this stuff sells like hotcakes. There's tons of people out there interested in this product because it gives a car an interesting look. It mimics the look of real carbon fiber body material, which is used in car racing. It's lightweight but also very durable, so it helps to add speed. Well, racing and car customization enthusiasts like that look, but real carbon fiber bodies on a car can be insanely expensive. The car itself, just the body, can be like $500,000 or something like that. So to be able to give your car that same look, but for a tiny fraction of the price, is something that's really appealing, and it's something that you can do yourself. You don't have to go to a customization shop to actually do it. You can apply it with a hairdryer just to adhere the stuff to the body of your car. Now, there's also a whole bunch of other applications for this same product. People use it on all kinds of stuff, really. It's being used for like flooring. It's being used to accent electronics. It's really been expanding in the last number of years. And so I'm going to be targeting this not only for the reason that it's something that I would consider to be a passionate niche, but the products that I would be selling, the carbon fiber vinyl, and honestly, I won't even be selling it. I'll just be promoting it as an affiliate. These products, people will buy them over and over again because they're typically not going to be limited to just doing one project. They'll buy a sheet of this stuff, they'll try it out, they'll be like, hey, this is cool, now I want to do it to this part of my car, and they'll buy another sheet of it. And then you also get a second type of customer that is more of the business owner, the owner of a small business like a auto customization shop. They'll buy this stuff in larger quantities, but not like an entire roll, and they'll typically go back month after month after month and buy the same thing. I know all this again because I was involved in a project actually selling this stuff, and I'm not doing that anymore. It's something that we started and within a year we sold off the entire business for $50,000. So it was extremely lucrative, major high demand for it, and so I thought this would be a great potential niche to use for this strategy here as well, and it would also make for a lot of great examples for you guys throughout this series. Now, there are other types of auto customization products that are possible to target out there. They may not be products that people would buy as frequently, but one of the most appealing things about this particular niche in general is that the products are typically pretty expensive. So you don't necessarily have to have people that are buying things every single month, as long as what they're buying is going to be more expensive. So make sure you always consider the actual purchasing frequency of a customer before you essentially just say, well, you know, this product's too cheap, I don't want to target it. Well, if they're going to buy that product a couple times a month, then it might be worth going after. Whereas a product that's a couple $100, it might be okay if they only buy that every couple of months, or maybe even 6 months or something like that. So another example, they have these body parts, basically. Body panels, even different custom parts or accessories or stuff that you can add to various vehicles. There's all kinds of stuff out there for auto customization products. You just have to make sure you choose something very specific. That way, you know, you wouldn't want to be targeting this in a general nature, because there's all kinds of different cars out there. There's all kinds of different customization products out there. So you want to make sure that the people that would be following you would be directly interested in whatever it is that you are promoting. Next up, I want to talk about art, crafts, and sewing. This particular niche is going to mostly be filled with probably cheaper products. However, since these products are directly used with what somebody is doing with them, they use them up pretty frequently, and as a result, will have to continue to buy them pretty frequently as well. So this would be kind of the other end of the spectrum from the auto customization products, where you're going to have the cheaper products this time, but they'll be purchased more frequently, whereas the auto customization products will be more expensive but purchased less frequently. One really good example of a potential niche that you could target here that actually directly relates to this automobile niche is for a product called Cameo Silhouette. This product is something you hook up to your computer and you make designs on your computer, and then this Cameo Silhouette machine will print out those designs. It's essentially a printer, but it's not for paper, it's for material. So you could put fabric through these things, but one of the most popular things that they're used for is actually for a vinyl material. Very, very similar to the carbon fiber vinyl, except most of the time it is smooth on the facing side instead of textured like the carbon fiber is. And a lot of times the stuff used for the Silhouette machine, it's typically thinner as well. However, it's still pretty expensive. for these silhouette machines to use this vinyl. They sell this stuff in retail stores like at Walmart, but they're in small rolls. The selection's pretty small, and the prices are pretty high as well. You can get them online in larger quantities for much better prices and have a larger selection of colors and materials as well. So this would be another great niche where people would be very passionate about it. You would have readily available content out there because people post pictures of the projects that they create with these things. And they love engaging in conversation about it. They love looking at pictures of what other people have done with it to get ideas for themselves. And then not only that, you have a really great potential product that they would purchase over and over again. Now, one thing that I just wanted to point out here is that the product that they're going to buy over and over again, while in these couple of examples I've given so far, they would be buying the same product over and over again. It's important to remember that this doesn't have to be the case. They could be purchasing different products as long as it would be the same person buying niche-related products over and over again on a regular basis. So I think hunting is a good example of that. You most likely would not have the exact same product being bought over and over again, but you would have similar hunting-related products being purchased frequently by the same consumers. No, Alan. Alan's asking, do I find that promoting these types of products require a lot of support? You really don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. You don't have to provide any kind of support for it. The person selling the products ultimately is the one responsible for that type of stuff. All you're doing is gathering together the fans of these products, giving them something to follow along with. That way, when you do promote something, they will be there and readily take interest in it, and you earn all the commissions from it. And beyond that, you really don't have any real responsibilities to it. All you really have to worry about doing is just keep adding these quick small blog posts to your site on some kind of a regular basis. Now, I would recommend starting as small as possible. Start with one post a day and try that on for a couple of weeks maybe and see how you're able to keep up with it. And again, don't necessarily visit it every day to write your post. Sit down one day each week and write 7 posts and schedule them up to be sent out once a day. So that way you could really just sit down one day a week and do an hour, 2 hours worth of work perhaps. And that's pretty much all you would have to do for the week. Now initially when you're first getting started on these social media networks, you would benefit from being there at least to respond to people that might try to start up a discussion or ask a question or something like that, because it can help you to build that initial customer loyalty. But once you can get a decent little group, and it doesn't have to be a ton of people following you, a lot of times you can just sit back and they'll kind of answer each other's questions and strike up discussion with each other. So in short, I would say no, not much support at all, really if any. The next niche I would like to discuss here is remote control vehicles and aircraft. Cars, planes, and what I would say probably the more popular one in recent years would be helicopters. And I'm not talking about the cheap little $50 toy remote control helicopters that you would get from Toys R Us or something like that. I'm talking about hobby remote control vehicles here. These products, the people that are involved in these hobbies are very passionate about them. And not only that, there's all kinds of constant learning and information surrounding these niches. People are always, even when they've been doing it for years, there's still things that they can learn about it, or they still will have an interest in checking out what other people are doing. And they'll definitely have an interest in the new products that are coming out. Not only that, but the products are pretty pricey. The vehicles themselves and the startup equipment is pretty expensive. But even if somebody were to buy, say, a remote control helicopter and never buy a second one ever again, as long as they were passionate about it and flew that one on a regular basis, there's a pretty good chance that they would also be buying products relating to that on a regular basis. Because anytime you mess up on those things and crash them, it's the cash registers going crazy. You can have just one tiny little crash from 20 feet up in the air and do $50 to $100 worth of damage to a remote control helicopter that only cost $300 to start with. So this is another really good possibility that you can target, and a lot of really passionate people that are interested in this type of thing as well. Next up, we have hunting equipment. Now, hunting was on my previous list during the pop quiz and was selected as the most passionate niche of the 3 possibilities that I gave. So I wanted to talk about that in a little bit more detail here as well. Now, obviously you would not want to try to target necessarily the weapons. Like, you're not going to want to try to target guns. However, people are going to be really passionate about guns and hunting and anything related to it. And it's not always going to be positive. This is one particular niche where you're almost definitely going to have those two sides, the people that love it and the people that hate it. And again, this is quite all right because there's nothing that you can do about that. It's always going to exist. Chances are, if I were to ask you, what do you think about guns? Or what do you think about hunting, killing live animals for sport? Chances are you probably either love it or you're very, very, very much against it. And so this is kind of what we're going for here. Because no matter who you are, chances are you might have something to say about that niche one way or another. And so you open up your possibilities to a much higher percentage of people that would come across what you're doing. There's a pretty good chance that they would want to drop a comment on it or follow along with what you're doing. And there's all kinds of relating accessory types of products that you can promote. Even if you can't sell a gun on Amazon, for example, you could still promote bow and arrow or crossbows or hunting knives. There's all kinds of other possibilities that are not firearms that can still be sold that are still hunting weapons. And then you also have all the accessories that go along with it. You have clothing, hunting gear, you have camping equipment, boots, the list goes on and on, really. Next up here, musical instruments. This is another niche where you're going to have a lot of passionate people, and the products that you're going to be promoting, the musical instruments themselves, while the average person that just picks up, let's say somebody decides they want to play guitar, and so they go out and buy a guitar, chances are that person's never going to buy a second guitar again. However, if they end up liking the guitar and they continue to play it, pretty good chance that they will end up getting a second guitar, and maybe even a third and a fourth and a fifth one. And then they have all these other accessories that go along with them. They have amps, they have tablature books, they have training material, they have cords and straps and stands and picks, and the list goes on and on. So there's a lot of products that you can continually promote to these people, and they're definitely passionate about what they do. Now, I've targeted guitar niches before and done really well with them, and what I seemed to find was that a lot of times, while you could go down to your local music store and buy a guitar, they may not have as large of a selection, and typically their prices might be a little on the high side as well. But on Amazon, you can actually find a large majority of musical instruments and accessories sold for cheaper prices than what music stores will sell them for. Even the large mainstream major retailers like Guitar Center, for example. Amazon beats a lot of their prices as well. And next up here, I have fishing equipment. Fishing is one of the most popular hobbies in the United States. And not only that, but it's something that people have been doing for thousands of years. There's all kinds of products that go along with it. You have not only the fishing rods, but you have tackle boxes and lures and even clothing and things of that nature, because fishing isn't always just about what is actually being used to catch the fish with. Sometimes there's a camping trip that surrounds the fishing trip. So there's really all kinds of relational products, and even people that are in the niche and have been doing it for a long time, they will often still go out and buy new things for their hobby on a regular basis. And a lot of times these products can be pretty pricey as well. Some of the fishing equipment is not very cheap. Golf is a fairly similar niche. The people that are involved in it are very passionate about it, and again could also be considered one of the most popular hobbies in the U.S. The products that go along with them, the obvious golf clubs, people probably won't be buying those all the time over and over again, the same people at least. But there are all kinds of accessories to go along with them. You even have a lot of training would probably fit this particular niche really well. So Also consider this when you're dealing with whatever you end up picking, that whatever is out there on Amazon is not necessarily the only thing that you're limited to. If there is something else on another network, whether it's a physical product or a digital product, as long as it fits your niche and is something that people would readily buy, then there's really no reason to avoid promoting it. With golf, for example, you could, I'm sure, find ClickBank products for this particular niche, and you could easily promote those right alongside whatever physical products you're promoting. And the ClickBank products can, while I'm not a huge fan of ClickBank, if you can get the right niche and the right kind of product lined up for it, the commissions are high, so you can actually do pretty well. Having that constant contact with your readers will make a massive difference there in how well you can do with those digital products. So, now, on the other side here, these niches are some more of the most popular hobbies in the United States. Since we're targeting Amazon.com here, we obviously want to be going after products that people in the USA would likely be trying to purchase. Now, I didn't really include the mainstream sports here. Like, you don't see baseball or basketball or football or soccer up here. While those are popular, they might be a little too popular to actually be able to attract a decent base of people for it. But not only that, I feel like the products for some of those more mainstream sports are not really things that people will often be buying over and over again. You will have passionate people about baseball or basketball or soccer, but chances are they're not constantly buying things for that passion or for that hobby. Unless, maybe unless they were a fan of professional sporting teams. You have people that collect sporting memorabilia, for example. That could strew into the collecting niche and maybe be a good possibility, but I wouldn't necessarily just target a mainstream sport outright and try to sell, baseballs and baseball bats and gloves, for example. With pretty much anything that I've listed over here, you have a passionate following for these hobbies. You have some type of other product that people might be inclined to purchase on a more regular basis. Even with bowling, for example, you have the obvious bowling balls, but then there are still other things that people buy for that sport. There can be training, just like there is with golf. There can also be gloves and shoes. And for that particular niche, at least, like bowling shoes, if you're an avid bowler, they're not going to last forever. No shoes do. At least that would be one particular thing that they would continually purchase on a fairly regular basis. Any of these other niches still kind of work the same way. To talk about collecting in a little bit more detail, you have a lot of different things that people collect. So you would obviously want to make sure that you are targeting something very specific. You have some mainstream collecting type of things like stamps and coins, for example. And while you may not be able to promote the actual stamps and coins that people would really want to buy on Amazon, they would have the accessories that people would need to go along with those hobbies. So you'd have like the books that the stamps and the coins would be put into. And you might even have some beginner type of items there that people could buy for collecting purposes. But in some of your collecting niches, the best of the products, the rarer products, the more expensive ones, that obviously not everybody would be interested in buying, but some of your diehard fans would be interested in them. Those would more commonly be found on eBay, and you can try to get into eBay if you wanted to with these sites in addition to promoting Amazon products, but I would not even attempt to apply to eBay until you have an established site set up that's getting traffic and has a lot of really good content as well. Because eBay is pretty picky. They may only be looking for particular niches also to approve. So don't ever count on getting into the eBay affiliate program. But it is something worth considering for particular niches. That is a good point, Alan. Any sport that can lead to a professional career are good markets. You would definitely have your passionate people in those markets for sure. And I can see it as long as you're targeting one of those sports from the right perspective to make sure you're getting the older people that would be in that position to where they're essentially trying to progress to getting into a professional career for that sport. Obviously, those people would be much more likely to be buying things on a regular basis for that niche. So in that regard, I think as long as you could target it correctly, it could still be a good option to use for this particular strategy. I'm going to go ahead and proceed on to my next list here. This list is for pets. Beyond hobbies, I think that pets are probably the next thing that I would say could be considered passionate niches that people are likely to buy products on a regular basis and also likely to engage in conversation about those niches and products. People love their pets just as much as people that have kids love their kids a lot of times. I have pets, which I love, but I have kids as well, and the kids definitely are much more important than the pets are for me. But I have a lot of friends who do not have kids though, and a number of them have pets, and to them, their pets are essentially like their kids, and they'll spoil their pets and make sure that they have everything that they need. And a lot of their life will revolve around them. They're always talking about them and posting pictures of them on Facebook and so on. So, this is an ideal type of person that you would want to attract as one of your loyal readers for a pet-based niche. Now, over here on the left, I have standard types of niches that relate to pets. that are also some of the more popular ones, and what I would also consider to be the more likely niches where you could probably get people to have some kind of discussion with you about it. And then over here on the right, we have the different kinds of pets that are considered to be the more popular pets in the United States, starting from most popular going down to least popular. However, there's still, even down in the bottom parts of this, there's still a lot of fans for these particular types of pets. So what you can kind of do here is mix and match. You can take a niche from the left over here and kind of mix it with almost any one of these pet types to come up with some kind of general niche. You may want to still dive in a little bit deeper than that and try to come up with some type of sub-niche for whatever you end up selecting here, just to make sure you can actually target the products correctly and bring in the right type of loyal reader that will follow you and continue to be interested in what you're doing. A lot of these different niches over here, again, these are going to be more passionate niches. While some things initially, like crates and carriers and beds, may not really seem like something that people would be passionate about, you have to kind of consider the perspective of the pet owner here and why they might seek out these types of products. Dog crates, for example, are often used in training, but they can also be used by people who just simply, maybe they love their pets, but when they go to work every day and come back home, their pets trash their house. And so, you know, they would be very, very passionate about finding some kind of solution to stop that. And once they found it, they would likely be very passionate about talking to others about it and spreading the word about it as well. So that same kind of concept can kind of be applied to some of these others here. Cleaning supplies, you know, you will definitely have pet owners very passionate about the messes that their pets make, and obviously they want to clean up after them and not have an unsanitary house as a result. So cleaning supplies, very passionate, even though they'll probably be cheaper products, but they should be products that people buy on a pretty regular basis. Training equipment still kind of applies the same way. You'll have people that are passionate about training their animals. If, you know, they're doing something that they don't want them to be doing, you know, people want their pets to listen to them and to kind of fit into their lives. Health supplies, grooming, also important here. These particular niches are more about the well-being of the pets. So, you know, the people that are really passionate about them and consider them part of the family and, you know, as though they were one of their kids, you know, there's no way that they're going to neglect the health and long-term safety of their pets. So again, very passionate niches. Toys is also something I would consider to likely be a passionate niche. The people that want to spoil their animals will definitely be buying things like toys for them. And the selection in retail stores, like if they go down to local PetSmart, for example, might be fairly limited, and especially if they've been in there a lot on a regular basis, you know, they will likely be hunting for new stuff online as well. Now, the next thing I would like to discuss with you guys is about the actual strategy selection. Now, once you've picked out your passionate niche or what you think could potentially be a good niche for use with this blogging strategy, we need to kind of figure out whether it really is the best fit for this strategy or whether it would best be used with the original strategy that I taught in the first Azon Masterclass or in my Azon Home Study course. Because either series, either strategy is a viable strategy to use. It's really all about figuring out which would work best for it, because you don't want to be building one of these blogs for a niche that would be best suited for the other strategy, because you'll be making all these daily posts and you might not have the sales figures to really make it worth your while. So we simply want to make sure that it's going to be worth our while to put forth the extra effort to actually blog about this niche instead of just building a site full of static pages for it. So I have these questions here for you guys, and you can find these also in the guidebook for tonight's class, and then they're also included in a standalone strategy selection worksheet. All these were included as part of the course materials. So you can punch in your niche choice, answer the questions, and then diagnose the results when you are done. So I thought it would be potentially helpful to include this in a standalone sheet for you guys so you could print it out in the future if you wanted to use this on multiple websites over the course of years, or send it off to a VA for them to work on it, for example, whatever the case may be. Or even if you just wanted to simply print it out without having to print out the entire guidebook to go along with it. So all you have to do here, once you have your niche possibility, is go through this list of 9 questions and simply answer yes or no to each of them. And we're looking to tally up how many times we have answered yes here. And then we're going to take that number at the end and figure out which strategy is going to be the best fit for this particular niche that we're trying to target. So using my carbon fiber vinyl niche that I'm going to be using for the site that I'll create for you guys throughout this series, I will answer yes or no to these questions for that particular niche so you can see how this actually works. First of all, would I consider the niche to be a hobby or source of entertainment? It's definitely a hobby, and I'm sure a lot of the people that do that particular hobby definitely find it to be a source of entertainment as well. So I would answer yes to question number 1. Number 2, are there diehard fans that eat, sleep, and breathe this niche? I would definitely say yes to that as well. There are people super passionate about their cars and customizing them, and a lot of people definitely eat, sleep, and breathe their vehicles. Number 3, can I find people online that strongly express positive opinions about this niche? That is definitely a yes. The carbon fiber vinyl compared with the actual carbon fiber bodies for a car, the price difference is absolutely staggering. So that's definitely something that always gets praise for it. And it looks really great. It pretty much looks just like the real thing, but for a fraction of the price. And not only that, but it also protects the vehicle. It keeps it from getting scratched or even dented. Like this carbon fiber vinyl can even provide some protection against smaller hail from actually damaging the vehicle body. So there's definitely a lot of positive opinions about the niche. So that's definitely a yes. For number 4, I find people strongly expressing both positive and negative opinions about the niche. There are some people that express negative opinions about it, but it's not really along the lines of what I'm thinking about in terms of this question. I'm really thinking more about like hunting and guns. I always like to jump back to the gun niche because that's what I'm talking about for this question here. I want people that love it and I want people that absolutely hate it. Or else I would not answer yes to this question. So for my niche, I'm actually going to give a no to number 4. So next up, does the niche have products for sale that are reusable or commonly purchased multiple times a year by a single consumer? This is definitely a yes. The carbon fiber vinyl often gets purchased multiple times a year by the same person. Number 6, are there products in this niche for sale that are above $100 that are the same thing, commonly purchased multiple times a year by the same person? That is also a yes for the carbon fiber vinyl. The material itself is kind of pricey. It's nothing compared to the real carbon fiber, but it's still pretty pricey. I believe like a 10 square foot sheet of it might sell for about $10. So if somebody actually wants to wrap even just one body panel on their car in it, it could easily cost $50 maybe. If they wanted to wrap their entire vehicle, it's definitely up into the hundreds. And then you also have interior accessories that people commonly wrap in this vinyl as well. So it's not just limited to the outside of the vehicle. And so I would definitely say that there are $100 and above reusable types of products here. For number 7, are there a lot of pictures and or videos about this niche available for free online? I would say yes to this. What I'm really looking for here for number 7, because let me point out number 8 here before I proceed. Are there a lot of pictures or videos about this niche available for free online that are created by consumers of the products? So that's the one difference with these two questions. You can have pictures and videos out there created by other affiliates or people simply trying to sell the products, or maybe the actual brand or manufacturer of the product might have this type of content out there available. So that can qualify it for a yes for number 7, which would be the case for carbon fiber vinyl. But then for number 8, you also want to know if there is consumer-created content like this out there available for free. Because this is going to be a really, really good source of our content. Without this consumer-created content, we may not be able to make a daily post about a subject matter potentially for eternity, really. But with that consumer-created content, chances are they're creating a lot more of that than you could ever hope to cover and post on your site. So you'll basically never run out. So I would also answer yes for number 8. There are a lot of people that will use this carbon fiber on their vehicles and take pictures of it or do videos of it and post that online to share with others. So for number 9, could I continually post new content about this niche every day for eternity? I might be able to do this as long as number 8 is yes, but there are some possibilities where you might answer no for number 8, but number 9 could still be a yes. So this is also an important one here. But ultimately, you're still just looking for a yes or no here and looking to tally up how many yeses and nos you came up with. So after 9 questions, I have 8 yeses for this particular niche. So based on how many times you answer yes, these are my recommendations. If you answered yes between 0 and 3 times, I would recommend the niche for my original site building strategy. So you would just want to build a site with a set number of static pages and target different kinds of important information for the people that are interested in buying whatever type of product your niche relates to. And then you would obviously not continue to focus on that site once it was constructed and move on to the next one. Well, if you get 4 to 6 yeses, then this is the point where I would at least start to consider using this niche for this particular strategy. And especially if the product is something you can continually sell to the same people, if that applies and you're within this 4 to 6 neighborhood, that would be a little more of an inclination that it would still be a good choice. Finally, if you have 7 to 9 yeses, this is most likely going to be an ideal niche to target with this strategy. And in fact, you may actually want to use both strategies for a niche that ranked up in these numbers. And now, what I'm kind of talking about in terms of using both of the strategies, since my original strategy involves creating WordPress pages and only a set number of them on specific points of information for the niche. And the new strategy is about blog posts. You can actually, in the WordPress system, not have these two strategies mixed together. So you can kind of keep them separate and still have all the static pages on the site like you would create with my first strategy, but then still have the continual fresh content as blog post with this new strategy as well. So it's not something you have to do, but it could be worth the extra effort to actually do that. Now, once you have your niche picked out, then you could actually go and start setting up your site that you would use. If you were using an existing website, let's say you went through my first Azon Masterclass and you built a site with that strategy, and the niche that you picked also checks out to be a good niche that could be used with this strategy as well. In that case, you could use your existing website and just simply build onto it with this new blog content. But if you were in a situation where you needed to create a brand new website, then I would recommend to go out and get preferably a .com domain. And I would also probably recommend to go for a branded domain name. A good example of that is this site right here. I'm going to be targeting carbon fiber vinyl, ultimately is my niche. However, I'm not calling my site carbonfibervinyl.com because I want it to be more of a name that people could remember, essentially, and identify with me and what I'm doing. So I have picked Carbon Fanatic. Carbon obviously relates to the niche that I'm targeting and would also apply to a lot of the keyword phrases for that niche. But then the fanatic part of it is really more of a descriptive word, part of the domain branding, and doesn't actually apply to keyword phrases that I may be trying to get rankings for with this site. Because the search rankings are not as important with this type of site, especially if you're willing to give this a little bit of a boost in the beginning with some Facebook advertising. And it really doesn't have to be a lot. You can put like $10 into a Facebook ad and potentially attract possibly even hundreds of people for your Facebook fan page or group or whatever the case may be. So you can bring traffic in and build your loyalty with this strategy without any search rankings whatsoever. But it doesn't mean I'm going to completely ignore that. There's still a great potential for search rankings with these sites, but I'm simply not trying to go after that in my domain name here. Now, to set up your site, I have an initial site setup list for you guys to go through. It's just 4 different steps that will help you get your WordPress site prepared for site construction for this strategy. And then once we get to just the second class in this series, we will start site construction. So we're going to be diving into building our site really early on in this series, and I would definitely recommend for you to try to follow along with building your own website as we progress, especially since this series is going to be running through the end of June of 2014. So by the time the series is over, since we're going to be starting our website here in just about another week and a half or so, you can have a very profitable site already going by the time the series is even over. So I would definitely recommend following along and trying to keep up with this course if at all possible for you to do so. So the first thing that you need to do is just get WordPress installed if you're on a new domain name. And then I have some free plugins and themes that you should get installed to get everything started. These are just going to be basic plugins that you can actually download directly through WordPress. So all you have to do is go to plugins and add new and just search for each of the plugins that I have mentioned, with the exception of one, product style, I threw in there. That is my own plugin. But most of you should probably already have that, and it's not a requirement. You could always replace product style with a different Amazon plugin or even manually create your own links. So everything you see on this page here, with the exception of this one right here. This is just a plugin that I have installed on this site at the moment to do some playing around with it and testing. But all these other plugins, custom recent post widget, Google Author Link, Google XML sitemaps, product style, and SEO Ultimate, I would recommend for you to go ahead and get these installed and set up on your site. Now, Google XML sitemaps and Google Author Link, these would also require you to go over to Google and get things set up over there. So you need to get your Google Analytics set up, your Google Webmaster Tools, and also Google Plus account so you can hook it up with the Google Author Link. All of these strategies, though, setting up all these plugins, this is all information that I covered in my original series. If you happen to not have access to that series and you need some help with this, please feel free to just send me an email or something in private, and I'll be happy to help you out. But for the most part, this should be pretty basic stuff here, so I didn't want to spend a half a class or even an entire class this series walking you guys through step by step of how to actually set all this up, when it's something I've already done for many of you before and would likely just be repetition. So next up here, I have one more plugin that I didn't mention, Weaver 2 Theme Extras. This plugin is actually part of the theme that I would recommend for you to install, and that theme is called Weaver 2. Well, once you install Weaver 2, which you can get through WordPress also, just click on Add New and search for Weaver 2. Once you go into the administration for it, it'll have a notice up at the top of the page saying that it recommends for you to install this Weaver 2 Theme Extras. So just click on the link that's available in that notice and proceed with installing this plugin as well. Now, you could potentially use a different theme, but some of the templates that I'm going to be providing you guys with in the next class will, not all of them, but some of them will be dependent upon this Weaver 2 Theme Extras plugin. So that's at least one of the reasons why I would recommend using Weaver 2 as your theme. It's highly customizable, and I've also provided a lot of training in the past for it, which I'd be happy to share with any of you guys that may not have access to that already. Next up here, we have a couple of settings that we need to make sure are set correctly. In the general settings, we just want to provide a site title and a tagline. Since I'm using a branded domain, I am just setting my site title as my domain name here, so I just call it Carbon Fanatic. I've put a keyword phrase in my tagline though. Carbon fiber vinyl can be found here, so at least that phrase will exist somewhere, but I'm not setting it as my domain or the title of my site. Now beyond that, the other important thing I need to be sure to set in the settings here is the permalink settings. I want to make sure this is set to post name, so just click on post name bubble and save your changes. But this should all be pretty much repeat information from previous classes I've done. So finally here, we want to get the categories set up that we're going to use. Since we're going to be doing posts this time around and not pages, we need to have categories that we can group these posts into. So to start with, I would recommend creating 2 categories. One of them, I would make a recommended category, and you can even keep the name the same for this particular category. And this is where I will be putting posts that are going to have my advertisements in it. So I might review a specific product for some of those posts, but I could also just make a post about what the Amazon bestsellers were in that niche for the last week or whatever. My next category is where my daily blog posts are actually going to be going. So for this site, I have set this category and called it vehicles because I'm going to be covering carbon fiber vinyl for vehicles. This is potentially going to be the primary target of this niche because that's where the better money is at in terms of the people buying the products. Obviously, they need a lot more material to wrap a car than they would if they were just buying it to put on their cell phone or on their laptop or something like that. But it still leaves me the potential in the future, if I wanted to and felt like it was a good idea, to expand into some other possibilities. So I could always create a second category in the future to try to target something else. However, if you do this, make sure you can keep up with the first category, and also consider that you may need to basically double the amount of content that you're posting when you create a new category. That way you don't abandon your old category, you're still keeping up on that, and you would simply have a new category that you started up, and perhaps we're trying to build some followers more interested in that category at a later point in time. So when you first enter this categories page, you might see an uncategorized category. It will not let you delete it. You can see one of these categories will not let me delete it. That's this one right here. This was the uncategorized category. But you can simply edit it and change the name, and also be sure to change the slug right here. And then you can overwrite that uncategorized category, just so we don't have a category in this system that we're not actually going to end up using. Now, this actually takes care of the initial site setup, and then everything we're going to be doing beyond here is really going to be more in the site construction area, and this will be starting with the next class. Now, the next class will be held on Thursday, January the 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then there will also be a repeat for that the day afterwards, which will be Friday, January the 31st at 1 p.m. However, in between now and then, next week on Tuesday, January the 21st at 7 p.m., we'll be having the first Skype Mastermind group chat for this series for all of you that joined as a pro trainee. And I'll be getting in touch with you over the course of this weekend to get you into that group and get you all set up for that. So if you have not connected with me already on Skype and you are a pro trainee, please be sure to add me on Skype in the next couple of days so you don't miss out on that mastermind session. Now, let me flip over to the member site here for just a minute so I can point a couple things out to you guys. Yes, all the webinars are recorded, Alan. Here in the member site, everybody that is part of this course should have login information for this member site right here. If you don't have this, please get in touch with me and I'll make sure to get it to you. But chances are you should, for being in this live webinar, you should already have this information. So on the main part of the page here, we have all the classes for this series. And then each of the actual classes, you go into them and sign up for the actual webinar if you would like to attend it. However, whether you sign up for the live webinar or not, you'll still get access to all the recordings for all the webinars throughout the series. Over here in the course material page, you can find the guidebook for each class as the series progresses, and any other course materials that I may be including. And then you will also find the replays. So you're in class number 1 right now, but you're in the repeat. This right here is the replay recording from the class that I held earlier this week on Tuesday night. So this is the same class as tonight's class, but if you watched both classes, I know there's at least some of you that were actually in this first class live. It's still the same basic information, but I don't script my webinars. Hey, Linda was there. Yeah, I know at least a couple of you were also over there. I don't script them, so they can sometimes come out a little different the 2 times that I present them. And I'm really presenting them twice to make them more available for as many people as possible. Yeah, I'll have to double check that, Kate. She said class 5 and 6, the replays are 7 to 9 p.m. All of the repeat courses, so anything listed as a replay course right here, they should all be Friday at 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. You said 5 and 6. Yeah, you're right about that. That time is incorrect. I think the webinar for that, though, yes, is set up correct, though. So I'll get that corrected there. Kate, thanks for pointing that out. Yes, Linda, if you would still like to join the mastermind group and did not do so initially, you are still welcome to do that. I don't mind upgrading accounts at all for essentially for the price difference of what it was offered at. For if you paid the one-time fee, I think that would be $200. If you're on a monthly plan, it could potentially vary, I guess. One more thing to point out: if you are a trainee and you have not connected up with me on Skype yet, just click on one of these mastermind listings, and right here where it's telling me that I'm a basic trainee, because obviously I don't want to be showing my Skype ID and that other information here on this recording. But if you are a pro trainee, right here you'll actually see my Skype ID instead of this message. So if you have not already added me on Skype, please make sure you do so over the next couple of days or so. Yes, Linda, I haven't had anybody else mention issues with signing up for the webinars and not getting the email confirmations. Everybody else getting their webinar email confirmations after you sign up to once you punch in your information on one of these pages. Have you guys been getting a email confirmation? Okay, yeah, it looks like others are, Linda. If you do continue to have that issue, let me know. I can even, you said you've signed up for all of them. I could even go back in. Let me make myself a note here. I can go back in and see if you are indeed listed for literally all of them. Okay. I will go back in after this class is over and see if you are listed in the registrants for those, just to let you know if they are indeed signed up for okay. And you did receive the reminder email with the link in it to actually join the live webinar, like today, an hour before the class started, for example. Are you receiving those emails, but just not the confirmation one? Okay, okay. I'll definitely double check on that for you then, Linda. Terry, I by branded domain name, I'm kind of referring to just creating your own name that thinking of the name might, it should give people some kind of an idea of what you're doing, but, you're not using a domain name that exactly matches a keyword phrase, for example. So by branded, any brand that you can think of, basically. Microsoft, for example, is a brand. So Microsoft.com, instead of them calling their company, I don't know, desktopcomputers.com, for example, you're branding your name instead of just using a keyword phrase, basically. So there's really no set, way to go. If you wanted to do something in cycling, you could use the word cycling, but you could also use bike or bikes or bicycles or, whatever. If there was a particular type of cycling sub-niche that you were going after, it could even use a word relating to whatever that sub-niche might happen to be. So there's really no set predefined rules on picking a branded domain. I would just recommend having some kind of word in your branded domain to where people can look at it and kind of know what you're all about. Yeah, something like that. You're quite welcome, Terry. Now, I guess I've already been in this for a few minutes here, but if any of you guys have any questions for me on anything about today's class or on niche selection or anything relevant, please feel free to ask, and be happy to shoot some instant answers right back to you guys. And otherwise, all the pro trainees are more than welcome to get a hold of me on Skype and ask me questions whenever you feel like it over there. If you have something you want to discuss more in private, about particular niches or products you might want to go after, and maybe you don't want to share, please feel free to get in touch privately on Skype with me there and discuss those things. It could, Victor. He's asking if the niche is popular but not connected with any product purchase. Could it be done with AdSense? It can. It won't really be a strategy that I'll be teaching, but this whole series and really any of the site building strategies that I've taught, while I teach them for Amazon, they could definitely be used with other networks. I have had some Amazon sites in the past not work out too great, and instead of trying to fix them, because I had traffic on the sites and just wasn't able to refer sales, I felt like I had maybe picked the wrong niche or the wrong type of product or whatever. I have converted some Amazon sites over to AdSense sites because they simply weren't converting for me. So it can be a good way to monetize traffic that may not actually be able to be directly converted into a sale, or at least not as easily, you know, if there's no relational product to promote. So it's definitely a possibility, Victor, if AdSense is more what you're interested in over Amazon, it could definitely be applied to that as well. You're quite welcome, Alan. Hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, glad you made it to the end as well, Sam. That would have been bad if you had 2 computers go out on you. Look forward to seeing many of you guys in the mastermind this coming Tuesday, and if I don't see you then I will be seeing you in roughly 2 weeks for class number 2. Hey Trina, glad you enjoyed this secondary class, and thank you for your comments, and hope you're able to work through the first series and still make sense of this second series too as you progress. But I think you'll probably see that the first series, a lot of the concepts that you know, I may not go into details on in this new series, they are covered in a lot more detail in that first series. So it is a good starting series before moving on to this one for sure. And I'm very happy to hear that you're enjoying it. Thank you, Trina. Goodbye. I will see you again next class. Let's see, Linda. Yes, that's fine. That email is okay to use to contact me for that, and no trouble at all. Yeah, that for the help with the niche selection, Skype probably is the best way to go there, because then, you know, we can do that privately, and you can actually let me know what you're thinking about in terms of a niche that you're choosing, and can help you narrow that down if you would like to. And, you know, that way everybody else doesn't end up, you know, knowing what you're going after and potentially trying to go after the same type of thing or something like that. Oh, really, Terry? This was a lot easier than the first time? That's good to know. I'll see you on Skype as well. Feel free to let me know if you... Oh, the time difference. Okay. Okay, good. I'm glad to... I have been kind of wondering about that, whether setting up these Friday classes at 1 p.m. was really worthwhile or not. Glad to hear that It's okay, great, awesome. Glad to hear that it's working out good for some of you guys. No problem at all offering the earlier in the day classes along with the evening classes as long as someone's getting benefit from it. So great to hear that, Terry. Thank you. Hope you have a great weekend as well. Thank you everyone for coming out today. Hope you enjoyed it. And if there are no additional questions for me, I will go ahead and call it a day. And the recording for today's class will should be up before the day is over with later tonight. Thanks again, everyone. Hope you have a great night, and